What is happening, guys, and welcome back to Redbeard's Garage. A while back, I got the opportunity to travel to Chicago with Tim, the owner of Go Power Sports, to sit down with Bill Hatlam, the creator of Manco. Now, if you know go-karts and mini bikes, you know the name Manco. It's pretty much the holy grail in go-karts, and it was just an awesome opportunity to be able to sit down and learn the history of his company and how he built the go-kart industry into what it is today. So let's jump right into that video, and we'll see you at the end.
I am Bill Hatlam, and I'm a Purdue mechanical engineering grad. Served in the Air Force for a couple of years during the Korean War as an officer, and then worked for a number of companies, and then in 1966 started Manco Products. Originally it was just with mini bikes the first couple of years, and then the go-karting was just really getting started. And so first cart I had was a single seat cart. Then we went from that to a two-seat cart, side-by-side seating. And we were in, when I started the company, we were in about 5,000 square feet, and added to that building and ended up with about 10,000 and ran out of space. And then decided to build a new building about 1.5 miles or so away, and that originally was 22,000 square feet, and I thought, boy, oh boy, I've got more space than I'm ever going to need. We filled that immediately, and then added about another 10,000 for welding and fabrication. Central Cycle of in South Bend was in many bikes, and I knew them, and they had a go-kart, and I called him one day and told him I'd like to get in it. Could I buy one of his carts to use as a model? He said, sure. Instead of telling me to go jump in the lake.
Yeah, ruh-roh.
Yeah. So he and I were pretty good friends and became good friends. So I bought a cart from him. It was a two-seat cart, and it was a kind of a triangular shape. He made it wider at the front for people's feet to give them more room there.
Okay.
And I subsequently changed that to straight frame,
right,
so that two people were sitting there. Over the years, we developed a lot of safety features. That pedals that was used for the throttle and the brake had what I called a safety pocket in it, because it came up and curved. And generally, when you're sitting in a cart, your feet, most people's feet don't go straight ahead. They tend to go off to the side. So the way the pedal was formed, your foot could not slide off the pedal, and that was important for the brake. So that's how we got into that kind of a pedal. And I bought tooling from him, and used to provide stuff to him.
Did you say you was building mini bikes at first?
Yes.
Do you remember the model name? What you called it?
Well, we were calling it the Little Jen, Jen, named after a daughter, Jennifer. We were using a Clinton engine, and Clinton was not real popular, and then they were beginning to have problems, and subsequently went out of business. So we switched to Tecumseh, and we were using Tecumseh engines for years, but Briggs & Stratton was still the preferred engine, even though I think I had been told numerous times that Tecumseh was really a better engine than the Briggs. For one thing, Tecumseh had a carburetor, and Briggs had a diaphragm carburetor, which was sometimes referred to as suck-a-jet. Briggs, because of their construction, often would get a fuel leak. If the cart turned over, fuel would leak out, and fires would easily erupt.
Oh my God, help me, I don't want to die! Oh, stop, jump, and roll!
You're not on fire, Ricky Bobby!
I'm on fire! You're not on fire!
And we had several product liability claims as a result of fires from their carts. And interestingly, I went to Briggs. They sent their jet down and picked me up, and Tom DeLong, the sales manager, Briggs flew us to Milwaukee and went to their plant, and we had a big conference, and finally either I or the attorney, Fred Turco, brought up this point about the fires and the product liability, and just a few minutes later, Briggs' attorney, who was sitting in the room, suggested we take a pause, and he wanted all of the Briggs people to go out of the room. So they did, and they had a separate conference somewhere, but the fire thing triggered it. And it was shortly after that that Briggs changed their warranty policy and said they would not warrant an engine that was used on a go-kart or a mini bike. Well, if there was no warranty of any kind, nobody was going to use them. So that switched everybody over to Tecumseh, and or it seemed to me there was a foreign engine, Suzuki or
Subaru. Subaru.
Yeah.
But you went for years with that overhead valve Tecumseh, which was really a phenomenal engine.
Yes, it
had
was.
a compression release, a solid state ignition. It was a great,
very good engine.
Yeah.
I had heard many people say that it was a better engine than Briggs.
Absolutely.
But Briggs had a better name, bigger name.
Sure.
And,
well, people remember Tecumseh from the old days. That's always what they were always hard to start because their compression was higher than a Briggs, and people just didn't know how to work on them. Where a Briggs, I think, could run on water almost.
Yeah.
And but that new overhead valve Tecumseh was just a phenomenal motor.
Yeah.
So, you were talking about this phenomenal growth that you were having through the years, and the reason for that, I would assume, is because you went after some of the large accounts like Sears and JCPenney and Montgomery Ward, and of course you were the first guy to really do that, were you not?
Yes, and one of the other things is that I made personal contact with even though I had sales reps like John Ottstock and so forth. When John would go in, I always went with him, and the same. I had started calling on Sears. First visit was just, well, thank you for coming in, etc. The second time, a few months later, the fellow did remember me after I introduced myself. So yes, and by the third time, he knew my name, and he said he'd like to buy from me, but he said they were already established with Fox Corporation and Bird, and therefore wouldn't do anything. Well, not long afterwards, a few months later, just before Christmas, he called me and said, I want to buy from you. He said, meet me at the O'Hare Inn on such and such a day in Chicago. And so I went there and met with him, and he gave me an order for 500 units right then as a start, which was very, very nice. But I never got a single piece of that order because the assistant buyer was shuffling all those orders off to Fox Corporation. As a result, we didn't get any of that, but shortly after that, after Christmas, the buyer, Bob Ely, called me and he said, come on up here. He said, I'm fed up. He said, I want to get a new supplier. And I met him and we got into business, and eventually we had 6 or 7 pages in their catalog, which was very significant for a company like ours.
You know approximately what year that was, you remember?
Somewhere
I'm thinking the middle 70s.
Yes, yes.
Because that American Express chassis, I don't think you came out with till like the middle 70s.
Yeah.
But I remember that one of the first ones I remember was the white one that had the American flag for the, what was that, the bicentennial or sesquicentennial, whatever, bicentennial, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And that was, of course, 76. So let's jump over to Bird Engineering. When did you, if you remember, when you bought them and why did you buy that company?
We were competing with Bird at Sears, and I think maybe Lowe's also. I knew that based on the pricing and just costing, that Bird could not be making any money. Bird had hired a fellow by the name of Larry Long as president or CEO of the company. So Larry and I became pretty good friends. So one day I called him, and the market was down. It might have been in the Carter years, the early 80s or something. It was a bad period. Interest rates were high. Bird had been sold to Nico, Nebraska Engineering Company, and Nico made irrigation equipment for the farms out in the Midwest area, Nebraska, Iowa, etc. And Larry was president of Nico, but also was then president of Bird. I called Larry and told him I didn't think the market was big enough for both of us, and that I felt one of us should get out of the market, that I'd like to stay in it. Would he like to get rid of the company, get rid of Bird, sell it? And he said yes. He said, come on out and talk to us. I made the arrangements. I went out there and met with him, worked out a deal that was very good, that I didn't buy all of their products and so forth, but was able to pick and choose the items that I needed and wanted, engines and other kind of things.
What a sweet deal.
Yeah, it was. So I made several trips out there. I'd take Dave Brown, my quality control manager, out there with me, and we looked at all their fasteners and decided which fasteners we could use and which ones were fine thread that we didn't want compared to coarse thread that we were using, or vice versa. And so we went through and marked stuff that we wanted to buy, and ended up with a price for all of this stuff, and worked out the deal. And in the meantime, Nico had sold Bird, or maybe Nico even, to some Texas company, and I don't remember who it was or where they were. And so we ended up finishing the deal, paying it off through this Texas company. So that's how we got Bird, and that's how we, through this call from Bill Graff, ended up with Fox also. But it's interesting to think back at the various companies, because Rupp Corporation was the biggie at the time. And I remember seeing a financial statement on Rupp, and they were doing $4 million just in parts.
Wow.
And at that time, I wasn't doing that much in sales. And I was quite amazed at that. Well, Rupp got into the snowmobile business right at a unfortunately bad time, that we ran into about 3 winters with very little snow. And that really killed Rupp. There were other companies, Gilson, a lawnmower company in Chicago, in Wisconsin, likewise had the same sort of thing happen, and there were others too. I think Fox might have had a snowmobile, or small snowmobile. One of the funny things was I was trying to get into Montgomery Ward, because they were buying from Dick Alexander,
Alexander Reynolds.
which Alexander Reynolds, and then he had some problems, and he changed the name to Dialex, which was a contraction of Dick Alexander. I knew he wasn't making any money, also based on his pricing. And the two assistant buyers at Montgomery Ward wanted to buy from me. And they were ready to sign an order, and then the buyer came in and he said, "You will not buy from this band. You will continue to buy from Dialects, or your jobs are done." I think we ended up selling engines to Montgomery Ward. I don't know whether we ever sold any carts or not. I don't remember. But Ward at that point was on a downhill slope, and not long after ended up closing the business.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever sell much to Penny's?
J.C. Penney.
Uh-huh.
I made a trip out there. Forgotten who was selling to them. I think Bird might have been, but I'm not sure now. We had I had a lunch with the buyer. I had a very good relationship, and we were ready to do it. And then finally he called me and said that they were not going to get into that business, or they were going to discontinue the business. Mm-hmm. So that ended that.
Okay.
Ace Hardware was the biggie in hardwares. Otasco.
Whites.
What was the Texas one?
Whites.
Whites, yes,
Mm-hmm.
White stores.
Mm-hmm.
Lowe's was another major one.
Now, when you say Lowe's, you mean Lowe's Home Improvement?
Yeah.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course you have independent dealers, and that's kind of where we got started with you at Karting, and then we became a distributor for you.
Yeah.
For quite a few years, and we had 4 states.
We had some sales reps. There were 3 or 4 fellows that covered the Southwest, and one who specialized in also in selling goods in Mexico, and I don't remember now what lines they handled. Anyhow, it turned out that he had 2 or 3 people that wanted to buy, but Mexico put such a tariff on the product that it made it too expensive to buy. So it didn't happen. Now the same thing he had somebody very much interested in Brazil. And once again, they put such a high tariff on the cart that it wasn't practical for anybody to buy it. And I thought at the time, that is not good sense, because had they not done that and kept the price there, the market would have grown. Brazil is a big company, a big country, and the market would have grown, and somebody down there would have said, "Hey, wait a minute, they're paying freight all the way from Indiana. We ought to do this." And so they could have developed their own business down there. Mexico could have been the same way.
Sure.
But it didn't happen. So, I mean, it wasn't good sense on the part of the government and so forth. And we weren't a threat in any manner, since nobody else was producing the thing there on a thing. We sold a lot of carts in Norway, and I couldn't imagine Norway buying them as hilly as they are, but they did. Spain, we sold them in Saudi Arabia. We shipped a tremendous number to Australia. One of my sons was with an insurance company here in town that had worldwide business, K&K Insurance, and he was stationed in London for a couple of years covering Europe, selling insurance to racetracks and so forth. He and his wife were living in London, and they were in Paris on a business trip and fun trip, and they were walking down the street, and there was a dingo and one of the other carts sitting in a shop window. And I've got a photograph. He took a photo of it, and I've got the photo somewhere in my files downstairs of the karts sitting in the window and everything.
You realize then you were really a worldwide company?
Yeah, we were. We were.
Pretty fun, huh?
By shipping to Europe and Southeast Asia, Australia, Mideast, Saudi Arabia, Spain, and those places. Yes, we were shipping worldwide and stuff. So.
Guys, thank you so much for watching, and thank Go Power Sports for allowing us to be able to create this content. Without them having their hookups in the go-kart industry, we would not be able to sit down with people like Bill Hatlam. This was an awesome opportunity, and huge thanks to Bill Hatlam for letting us into his house and learn the history of his company. It's a great story, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. So make sure to check out those links to Go Power Sports in the video's description. Let them know Redbeard sent you when you're checking out, because those do help us continue to make this content. And guys, I hope you like this Legend of Karting series. We've got a lot more videos coming. We're going to be filming this and keeping it going over the next few years. So we hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.